What up, y'all? Let's get into the Jonathan Majors trial, day 5 and 6. I wanted to put these 2 days together because this was all Grace's testimony. So after day 5, when the prosecution had her on the stand, I thought they were working for Jonathan Majors because by the end of the day, she had admitted to being the aggressor, chasing after him, going out partying after the incident. I was confused. I was like, yo, this isn't helping the prosecution at all. By the way, we also found out that her mom, dad, and sister were attorneys. And for her to be surrounded by lawyers, I thought she did a horrible job presenting this case for the prosecution on day 5. Now on day 6, when Jonathan Majors' lawyer had a chance to cross-examine her, I just knew this case was over. This was a wrap because the prosecution literally handed you this case with a big bow on it. His lawyer, Priya, all she had to do was catch the alley-oop and close this thing. After hearing what and how Priya cross-examined her, I think she may have left a real sour taste in the jury's mouth. I was wondering why nobody was reporting on day 6, and now I realize why. Priya confused the hell out of everybody. So maybe all this will start to come together on day 7. I don't know. Okay, let's rewind. Let's start this video off with getting into day 5, the start of Grace's testimony. I just want to say, once again, this was not a good day for the prosecution. His ex-girlfriend testified, and in my opinion, I could be wrong because I'm not there in person, but it seems as if she made herself sound like the person who initiated all of these problems. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on her initial statements about their background, but we're going to touch on them a little bit. So the day started off with her telling the jury how they met, which was on the set of Ant-Man 3. She said he immediately began love bombing her, writing her poems. He told her he loved her very quickly. He made her feel admired and cared for. She said things started to take a turn when she visited him in Atlanta and he was trying to give her instructions on how to deal with his dogs. She said he became very jealous when she mentioned her ex had a dog. There was another incident when he got so upset that he started to throw things against the wall in the house. Hey, that's his house. If he want to tear up his own belongings, let him do it, child. Let him tear his own stuff up. Another incident happened when she went to the club and she brought friends back to the house. She said he got very, very upset. So I'm going to pause right there because this may be where culturally and professionally, there's no understanding between them two. Because if I'm him, I wouldn't want random people in my house either. He's probably thinking, I'm in London, I'm filming something for Marvel. Marvel is very secretive. And here you come bringing these people home who I don't know. I understand him because I don't like strangers in my house. So, I can understand someone being mad about this. She said the following day he was so upset that he snatched her headphones out of her ear. She packed her things and was gonna leave, but then he started love bombing her again. He stated he was sorry. He wanted to marry her. He wanted to have kids with her, and he pleaded with her, don't tell anybody about what happened between us. It's going to ruin the plans. She said he would frequently get angry, threaten to unalive himself, and pretty much this kind of emotional manipulation is what pulled her closer to him. He asked her not to tell anybody about, the bad things that they were going through, and it created a relationship of isolation. So all these things with his side of the story can possibly fall under the guise of emotional and verbal abuse or manipulation. We don't know his side to get the full picture though, because like I said, if I'm working for Marvel, I come downstairs to get some water and there's a bunch of people in my living room that you met at a club, I'm probably going to be pissed as well. I might scare you. I might get angry. However, even with all her testimony about their relationship, she never outright said he was putting hands on her. I thought I was about to hear her tell stories about he was just very frequently physically assaulting her on a regular basis. All this tells me is he's emotional, he's temperamental, he can switch at the drop of a dime. I didn't need her to tell me this. I saw this on Lovecraft Country, Creed, and Ant-Man. None of this really moved me. Him being mean or angry, none of those are crimes, okay? He might just be a butthole. All right, now let's get into Jonathan Majors' ex-girlfriend's testimony of the incident. She said the day started off smooth. They had brunch. It was a wonderful day. As they were heading out for dinner, she noticed his mood begin to shift. He was seemingly upset because her shirt was kind of unbuttoned. He later revealed the real reason he was mad was because he found out she had been telling his manager their personal romantic relationship business. She said that same night he threatened to unalive himself again. She calmed him down and then the night was going well. On the ride home, she sees a text. Now, Dani Does Law was in the courtroom and this is how she described the reenactment from Jabari. She stated Jabari grabbed the phone, held it with two hands and turned her back to him to make sure he couldn't get the phone from her. She said he wasn't expecting her to take the phone and that he tried and failed to pry the phone out of her hand. She said he roughed her up, twisted her arms, slapped her with an open hand. I'm guessing he did all this to try to get the phone back. She then said she hit his arms and shoulders as he sat in the car. She stated Jonathan Majors ordered the driver to stop the car. He tried to leave the car. The video evidence shows him trying to get away and she kept trying to exit the car behind him. So it sounds like to me, he was trying to keep her in the car and she kept trying to follow him. It was stated at no point does it show him throwing her in the car like a football. She even stated he was trying to get me off of him. He was trying to run away. He wouldn't let me follow him. The video shows him 3 times trying to keep her in the car and finally he just runs away. It was stated the video evidence shows Jonathan Majors ran full speed from her at least 5 blocks and she chased behind him the whole time. The prosecution asked her, why did she attempt to follow him? She said she could only focus on the infidelity. The prosecution asked, did you feel any pain from the assault? She said she was only worried about who was the person texting him, and the pain didn't register to her nervous system. She testified that she was scared of him, yet in the video, you can see her go after him again. The prosecution asked once again, why did you go after him? She said because he was still her boyfriend, and she wanted him to get back in the car with her. She said he finally agreed, and when he got in the car, he was calm, he was quiet. She said he eventually stated, you can have the car, I'm going to a hotel, and then he took off running again. The prosecution asked her, why didn't you just go home? Why did you go out partying? She stated she wasn't partying. She said she met 3 strangers who wanted to console her, and she just didn't want to go home alone. The prosecution asked her, how did she sign the receipts in the club if her finger was injured? She said she could still do things with her finger. She also said she's used to operating in pain because she's a dancer. So she's essentially saying her body was still in shock when she was partying in the club and when she was chasing after Jonathan, so she didn't feel the pain. She said being a dancer, she's danced with broken ribs and other injuries and pretty much insinuating that she has a high pain tolerance. To me, in my opinion, all of this was bad because it labels her as the aggressor for 1, snatching his phone. You then turned your body away from him to make sure he couldn't get his phone back. Once again, she said he slapped her, twisted her finger to get his phone back. I'm assuming this is where the assault took place, but with her being so fair-skinned, if he struck her, I'm thinking there should be some signs of that, a bruise, redness in the face, something. She then admitted to hitting him several times in the car and then chasing after him in the streets. If the roles were reversed and this was a man who snatched his girlfriend's phone and he madly chased her down the streets of Manhattan, he would definitely look like a crazy maniac. Chasing behind someone who's clearly running away from you. So to me, this doesn't paint her as some timid victim who's scared of big bad Jonathan Majors. This tells me she was so madly enraged that she would do almost anything to get to him or that phone. So I think day 5 was a major win for Jonathan Majors, and it was a major loss for the prosecution. Now, let's get into day 6 of the Jonathan Majors trial. Day 6 was a little tricky. This day opens up with her still testifying. She said when she started to feel herself get a little too tipsy at the club, she went home, drank some water, and went to sleep. The prosecution once again asked about her pain level. She reiterated she couldn't really feel the pain she was in, but she eventually started to realize something was wrong. She said at first she didn't realize she was hurt because she was so focused on his infidelity, but eventually she noticed her fingers started to change colors and she contacted Jonathan Majors. He stated he didn't do anything. She then said she wanted him to come home right now and explain himself. Put a pin in that statement because this is going to be a statement of contradiction soon. She eventually noticed a cut behind her ear when she realized her hair was sticking to dried up blood. She also said that due to all of the pain she was in, she couldn't sleep. She couldn't lay on her right side at all, so she decided to take a few sleeping pills to help her sleep. By now, her finger is turning black at this point, and this is when she decided she was going to leave the relationship. She went into the bathroom to go to sleep and was eventually awakened by a group of police officers, and she felt really overwhelmed. So if you ever mix sleeping pills with liquor, it's gonna knock you out to the world. So per her testimony, she was completely passed out until the police showed up. Now that she's on the stand, she said she became scared when she heard Jonathan Majors in the other room the next morning. So y'all remember a few minutes ago, she demanded that he come home. And now the next morning, after he found her passed out and called 911, now she's frightened of him. She said she heard him talking and started to allude to the police what happened that night. She stated she wanted to say, "Help me, please." And then she burst into tears on the stand. She said she was really scared, but desperately needed someone to help her get out. I don't know if she meant get out of the relationship or get out of the house. Either way it goes, that's another contradiction because the police did not show up until 11 a.m. the next morning. You had the whole house to yourself since midnight. You could have gracefully left whenever you wanted to. She said she didn't want to outright tell the police of the assault because Jonathan Majors in the past told her, you can't really trust the police because they could do something bad to him as a black man. She said she found out at the hospital that he was arrested and felt like she should have lied. She felt like everything was all her fault. She also said the hospital staff told her they had to check her out a little further because they were told she tried to harm herself. She said no, she had an incident with her boyfriend and he was the one who hurt her. The prosecution finished up after she said all the attention from this case has been painful and made her feel like she was still in an abusive situation. So I did a video with a lawyer about 6 months ago, and he said something that just kind of stuck with me. He said, you want to prove to the jury anytime there's an assault that you were in pain. So her reiterating the fact that she never felt pain is very bad for the prosecution to me. And then she admitted that she chased him and wanted him to come back to the house. She kept saying she never realized she was hurt until she got home. I think this is all bad because if you had a cut behind your ear when y'all initially got into it in the car and a broken finger, there would definitely be signs of it before you got home. Those friends would have seen that blood trickle down your ear, or when you went to grab a bottle or grab your cup to drink, you would feel that pain. I don't care how high her pain tolerance is. If you have a broken finger, there is nothing in this world that would not let you feel it. I don't care if he cheated on her in front of her eyes. There's not that much infidelity that could cover up the pain of a broken finger. So she didn't do a good job for the prosecution. Now, let's get into the cross-examination. This is where things start to take a turn for me. So Priya Chaudhry, Jonathan Majors' lawyer, asked Grace how many times did she meet with the prosecution. Did they go over potential questions they may ask her? Did the prosecution offer her any kind of deal to testify against Jonathan Majors? Did the prosecution tell her to only answer yes or no to questions? Grace, at this point, seems very confused. The judge said Priya's line of questioning isn't clear and is too broad. Priya then begins asking her questions about Jonathan Majors' background. She asked Grace, did she have a photo album of Majors' pictures? Did she know he got his master's from Yale? Did she know he was a Christian who travels with the Bible? Didn't you guys pray together? Now, right here, it's clear she's painting the type of man he is to the jury. The same way Grace painted him as being emotional and manipulative, you now have his lawyer trying to paint him as, a God-fearing man, an educated man. So you get to see allegedly both sides of Jonathan Majors. Priya then went on to ask her, was she aware that her drinking was creating tension in the relationship? Does she remember having a discussion with Jonathan and she got so upset that she decided to go to the beach with a whole bottle of wine? She then told Grace, your parents have complained about your drinking, right? She then asked Grace the night of the incident, when Jonathan went to the bathroom, do you remember sneaking back to the table and having another drink? Did you hide the glass so Majors wouldn't see? So I thought this line of questioning was good up until she mentioned hiding the glass from him, because this now feeds into the narrative that he's controlling and she's scared of him. Priya Chaudhry then jumped to the aftermath of the incident. She asked Grace Jabari, do you remember screaming at Jonathan after the altercation? Priya then bounced around and asked her about her immigration status. This is where I started to get confused because I'm like, okay, what does her immigration status have to do with anything? Where's this going? Then the lawyer asked Grace, does she have an ex-boyfriend who unalived himself? This caused Grace to have an outburst in the tears and she ran out of the courtroom. This is where I completely got off of the Priya train because I get that she may have been trying to break her down or maybe even throw her off her game, but this could look very bad to a jury. It could look like bullying. It could also make her seem very sympathetic. It also feeds into this narrative that now his attorney is being emotionally abusive. So they eventually got Grace back into the courtroom and on the stand. Priya's now passing around pics of the large cut behind Grace's ear and photos of her fractured fingers looking swollen and bruised. She asked Grace, did she scream at all during the assault? Was the pain excruciating? Grace said, no. She asked, can you describe what type of noise did you make? Grace said, I kind of was just taking the pain. I learned not to fight back. Priya then asked Grace, have you seen any of the videos of yourself in the club after the incident? She stated, yes, I've seen the ones you posted. Priya then yelled objection. The judge said overruled. He wasn't looking too happy with Priya. And this is where, the day pretty much ended. So Dani Does Law was on a stream. She pretty much has a legal background and she's been covering the case. She even said Priya's line of questioning was very random and confusing all over the place. So if someone with a legal background was confused, I'm sure the jury was completely like, what the heck is going on? Dani did say she thinks Priya's strategy was to be very sporadic and non-linear to try and catch Grace in lies. In my opinion, she didn't even have to do all that because Grace literally said she didn't feel any pain, she chased after him, and she admitted to hitting him in the car. So this confusing line of questioning to me wasn't effective because it came off as very discombobulated, and then you broke the lady down on the stand by bringing up an exes. It was also stated that Priya's tone was very stern, kind of like being asked questions from a strict parent. It was also reported by People magazine that the judge sustained 25 objections to Priya's line of questioning and at one point reminded the lawyer of basic legal principles. He pretty much told Priya, careful about opening doors to other people. The judge said, they can redirect, pretty much saying, hey, you asking about her ex, don't let them start bringing up his exes. So she needs to be very careful with how she's handling Grace. Maybe on day 7, Priya will get a little bit more straightforward and in order to paint this narrative. So that's all I have for today. How do you guys think the trial is going so far? Leave your comments below and follow me on Twitter. I'll be doing live updates whenever I see them on the timeline. Peace out.